What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Seth, and today we're going to be talking about the Starfire Dragon in Trove, why it's as difficult to obtain as it is, and why we're all fairly confident that this is not intentional. The developers, unfortunately, up to this point, have constantly been getting questions about the Starfire Dragon itself in all of their live streams, and they refuse to admit that there's a problem with this dragon. So this is going to be the definitive video where I'm going to explain in layman's terms why this dragon is so difficult and why it is a big problem, and why a lot of the dragons feel very unbalanced in the way that you actually end up attaining them. Now, I'm not saying that this dragon can't be difficult to get, but he's the most difficult for all the wrong reasons. Because the way that it works is the Starfire Dragon is going to be obtained, like his fragments are going to end up being obtained from Shadow Tower elite mobs, and only a specific few. The dragon originally costed 50 fragments, which was already hard enough, and then they upped it to 100 with all of the other dragons as well that end up requiring fragments, which is completely stupid. Like, it really is, because this dragon is already so difficult. So let's just take as a quick little example this guy right here, the Cloud Dragon. Right? So I'm going to hop into a sky world right here just so I can give you a quick example of how this game is going to end up working in regards to dragon fragments, and how it's going to end up being a very big comparison between the Cloud Dragon, which we see right here, and the Starfire Dragon. So the way that Trove works is pretty much for every resource that we end up mining of crystallized cloud, we're going to have a percentage value chance of actually getting this dragon's fragments, and I'm going to show you right here live. Like, it's literally going to only take a few seconds before we're going to end up finding a fragment. Usually you'll end up finding it in one or two different ore veins. We already found one. And we got what was that, 29 crystallized clouds or 51 or so. I'm not entirely sure how many crystallized clouds I ended up having beforehand. But needless to say, we ended up getting maybe 300 or something like that. Let's just say on average, because that's usually what you end up getting out of one vein, right? Now, take that in comparison to the Starfire Dragon. That would be the equivalent, like the chance of the Starfire Dragon fragments dropping are the exact same as the Cloud Dragon that we just saw 2 seconds ago. However, the difference is that because this dragon's fragments can only drop from elite mobs, and this is a problem with any of the dragons that actually drop their fragments from mobs in the game in general, let alone this guy being the most difficult, because it's from a very specific enemy type that doesn't always spawn in Shadow Towers, and not all of them can end up dropping fragments in the first place. So I'll hop into a Shadow Tower just to give you a quick example. So let me just be on my Vanguard right here, and let's just open Pinata, for example. So to put it into perspective, we ended up mining, let's just say as an example, 300 cloud fragments right then and there, and ended up having good odds to end up getting ourselves one of the fragments, right? Here we are in Shadow Towers. This obviously isn't going to work. Like, we've already got a problem because no elite enemies can end up spawning in there. And essentially, we're going to have to try and find and kill 300 elite mobs in the Shadow Towers in order to give us the same odds of dropping the Starfire Fragment Egg as we just did within like 1 second of the Cloud Dragon. That is why the Starfire Dragon is so unintentionally difficult, and why the developers need to seriously rethink the strategy at which they've put to the drop rates to these dragons, because each of the dragons themselves needs to have their own individual drop rate in order to accommodate for the fact that you're not going to end up finding that many of the enemies. Now, if we just had to kill normal Shadow Tower enemies, that would be fine. But you can't end up getting, you can't get dragon fragments or drops or anything like that off of enemies that you kill at Cursed Skulls. You can only get it off of just these normal enemies, but further than that, in order to get the Starfire fragments, we have to be able to get it off of elite mobs. And more specifically, there's going to be some, we've actually gotten pretty lucky right here. There was like 5 or 6 elite characters right there. 7, let's just say. I'm probably counting it dead wrong. But certain enemies that are actually like copy and pasted from the Everdark, they actually won't end up dropping any items whatsoever, despite the fact that they're an elite mob. I'm guessing it's just because they completely copy and pasted the character from the Everdark and didn't end up actually bringing it over into the Shadow Tower and then giving it its own values. And as you can see right there, that was already within the same amount of time as the Cloud Fragments. Let's just say that was 10 elite mobs. That's the amount of chances that we actually have for the Starfire Dragon Fragments. Yikes, dude. So that's why this guy's so difficult. I just wanted to put it into perspective for you guys, and hopefully the developers end up actually hearing about this either from one of you guys watching, or they just end up watching the video themselves, because it is a big issue that this dragon is so difficult. Especially because he's not really like the coolest dragon in the game. He's awesome, don't get me wrong, but nowhere near the cool factor towards like how difficult it is to actually end up getting the fragments for this guy. And as I said, all of the enemy dragons, like the dragons that drop fragments from enemies, are going to be plagued like this. It's just that the Starfire Dragon obviously is just the most difficult because you have to farm an elite enemy and very specific ones, whereas like the Preserver Dragon, the Dinosaur Dragon, for example, his fragments, they should still, honestly speaking, be at 50 instead of 100, because you essentially would have to kill 300 dinosaur enemies in the dino biome in order to end up having the same chances of getting the fragment as we just did within 1 second, one small bombing session of the Golden Veil Dragon. Like, it's ridiculous, man. So there's a couple things that they could do. They could either go into the game's code and make it so that this dragon drops maybe, I don't know, like 25% of the time or something like that. Or, I mean, that's just an exaggerated number, but I'm just trying to say that the Starfire Dragon Fragments, if we're going to be required to have 100 of them, it should definitely be like a lot more common. Or they could lower it down to maybe 25 fragments to 30, not a full 50, because that was already way too difficult. I think 25 would be a nice balance. And then for any of the other dragons that end up requiring you to kill enemies, I think they should all end up having either their drop chance increased or their fragment decreased. So for this guy, again, maybe 50 fragments, if not a little bit lower. I mean, at 50 fragments, at least the Dino Dragon was possible. This one actually specifically requires you to kill spider enemies. So how bad is that? That should be maybe 40 to 45 fragments, I think, because then if you compare like the Basemouth Dragon, super duper easy to get, because of course you just end up getting him out of random ores. Then there's going to be the Plant Dragon, which of course is one of the easiest because you get sunlight bulbs like crazy, and then there's the Fishing Dragon, which the amount of fragments should not have actually been increased with this guy, because the amount of time that you have to spend fishing in order to end up getting the same amount of fragments as any of the other dragons is not really fair. And that's kind of the whole thing. Is I personally feel that the dragons themselves need to be a bit more balanced, rather than having certain ones being way more difficult than others. I mean, even we could take into account even these guys right here, the Resistor Dragons. They're super difficult, but at least it's like they kind of put the high value towards them, because this guy's on a different skeleton, and this one's kind of a Mag Rider type. But getting the fragments, you're just gonna slowly get them over time. It's not that it's inherently like hard. Whereas with the Starfire one, it's like you have to farm specific enemies, and you gotta farm them in the thousands in order to end up getting the fragments in the first place, which is an absurd amount of time to end up spending farming towards one specific idiot. But anyways, guys and gals, thanks for watching. I just wanted to most of all have this video to put things into perspective for you guys, and in the odd chance that the developers end up actually hearing about this and actually further than that, doing something about it, that would be absolutely awesome. But I'm not really expecting it, because as we know, they're kind of obsessed with, going forward with their content and going towards making new things rather than refining old things, which is something that I have personal gripes with. But I mean, as far as a game development is concerned, I'm really enjoying a lot of the newer content. I'm really looking forward to the August update, which is just going to end up being an improvements update, kind of fixing a lot of the issues that a lot of people have been complaining about. Maybe the Starfire Dragon is on the list, but I still do think that they don't seem to realize how difficult these fragments are to get, because not all of the elite mobs in Shadow Towers will drop items at all, let alone fragments. And then on top of that, I mean, we're talking about the developers here. They don't necessarily test this stuff, but the fact that so many people have been complaining about it, I think means that it's obviously a problem, rather than what the developers seem to do, where they just check the stats on the game system itself and see how many Starfire Dragon fragments are dropping amongst all players, rather than seeing how many people actually ended up crafting them within an allotted time frame. I don't know how in depth their system goes in terms of actually reading their own code. But anyways, I've gone long enough. Thanks for watching, guys and gals. Really do appreciate it. Hope that you enjoyed the video. Hope that it ended up enlightening you to how you actually end up getting this guy and why he's actually as difficult as he is. And if the developers are watching, hey, I love the dragons, love all the stuff that you guys are doing, but seriously, there are definitely some rebalance issues that do need to be equated with the Starfire Dragon. It is a problem. Like, there's a reason why people are yelling at you in your live streams every single time that they get the chance, despite the fact that you guys just keep saying, oh, everything's okay. You know, but anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like the video, sub, and hit that notification bell. And then also, if you want to support me, you can always sponsor the YouTube channel for a monthly subscription fee, or check links in the description for my merch store. And if you don't have any money, but you still want to end up going the extra mile of supporting me, you can always check the links in the description for Gawkbox, as well as Solidarity app. If you access those through your phone, it's going to quite literally, for an example, tell you, download this phone game, play it for 2 minutes, we'll give you $5 that you can end up donating to the content creator. How cool is that, man? And it only takes like literally a few minutes of your time. Thanks for watching, though. Sayonara and stay epic.